Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky claims that he's willing to resign if it meant that Ukraine would be accepted into NATO.
If it's about peace in Ukraine and you really want me to leave my position, I am ready to do that. Secondly, I can exchange it for NATO if there is such an opportunity. I'll do it immediately without a long conversation about it. I'm focused on Ukraine's security today and not in 20 years. I don't plan to be in power for decades.
Now, this comes after Donald Trump called Zelensky a dictator for cancelling elections and accused Ukraine of starting the war. Now, Trump says that the US has given billions of dollars to Ukraine to defend itself against Russia, and essentially, America needs that money back and should have the rights to hundreds of billions of dollars worth of critical and rare earth minerals. Zelensky insists that the $100 billion in aid from the US was a grant, not a loan. But Donald Trump, speaking at the White House today, told reporters that a deal is close with Ukraine.
It looks like we're getting very close. The deal's being worked on, and we're, I think, getting very close to getting an agreement where we get our money back over a period of time. But it also gives us something where I think it's very beneficial to their economy, to them as a country. But, you know, we're in for $350 billion. How we got there, I don't know, but that's a lot of money, a lot of money.
Let's bring in GB News host Darren Grimes. Darren, great to see you again. What's going to happen here? Are we really going to see Zelensky step down as he claims that he might? And are we going to see Ukraine agree to this deal with the US?
Look, I think this is a form of power play. I think this is Zelensky making clear he's not a dictator. You know, that was the charge that President Trump put to him. Now, look, I think there will ultimately be a deal because there has to be. Ukraine has no option here. And I think it's only fair and right for American taxpayers to try and be able to scrape back some of the money that they've spent ensuring, let's be absolutely frank, that Ukraine right now doesn't have a Russian flag planted in the middle of it. So, look, I understand all of that, but I do agree even with Sir Keir Starmer. Now, I put it like this. I don't say this very often, but they're all singing from the same hymn sheet here. And these globalists have all said that the Ukrainian position is sacrosanct, right? And that President Trump is some kind of orange dictator himself. That was the narrative, certainly from our own very own Sir Keir Starmer's Labour Party in this country. So this is major, this is significant, but let's not kid ourselves, right? Ultimately, Putin, if we don't have ironclad security guarantees, well, this entire thing is about as useless as a chocolate teapot, because we have to ensure that they don't come back once Putin's munitions are no longer as low as they are, and that his economy isn't on life support, which I'm sure he'll be able to turn around in a few years without international sanctions. So that's where actually the European plan, I think, is right and necessary. But it has taken President Trump in that peace through strength approach to actually broker such a deal. I am confident, as he is, that a deal will be struck, but we've got to ensure that the European response isn't one to flim-flam about on projects like net zero, which are immiserating Europe and its economies, and instead focus on defence and security.
It's interesting, Ukraine will not be able to join NATO. Donald Trump has made that crystal clear, and there are concerns about what security Ukraine will have to avoid a conflict in the future. And what we're witnessing at the moment is just a complete shift in approach to the war. The US did not vote in support of UN resolution condemning Russia's war against Ukraine. I suppose for Donald Trump, he's dealing with Putin. He's trying to get a peace deal here. Is this just part of the strategy?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the art of the deal, you know, the man is textbook. This isn't a politician we're talking about. This is a man who made his billions in real estate. You know, this is a man who shakes and signs on the dotted line in a really hard line way. But I think the question European electorates, and actually even in Australia as well, have to ask themselves is why have we got millions who'd rather, glue themselves to the road in protest against fossil fuels, which have, dragged us out of children dying in childbirth, over actually being willing to fight for their own freedoms. That's what I think whenever I hear someone say that Europe would go out to fight for Ukraine. Actually, I'm not sure many Europeans would fight for Europe, never mind a Ukrainian economy that's pretty alien to them. So there are wider questions for the Western world itself, and the Trump moment is an unfrozen moment to try and rebalance those priorities, because right now I think they're nuttier than a fruitcake.
Well, Donald Trump has told reporters that he thinks the war in Ukraine could end within weeks. That would be extraordinary. We know Zelensky says that he hopes that it will end at some point this year. But I want to talk to you about what is going on in the UK, because it appears that the UK government does not care about privacy or your privacy. Earlier this month, the government requested backdoor access to user data that even Apple doesn't have access to. Now, Apple refused, but has taken the unprecedented step of removing its highest level data security tool from customers. That's advanced data protection. So essentially, Britons can no longer encrypt data because the government wants to access it. Security experts are absolutely blasting this for weakening online security and privacy. What are the implications of this, Darren?
The implications are absolutely huge. London is considered a tech hub. It's certainly the tech hub of Europe, if not major parts of the world too. And that reputation lies in tatters now, because what we have done is said that there is no innovation that you can bring in Britain if actually that innovation is a privacy first innovation. This iPhone that I've got here is about as much use as a chocolate teapot when it comes to defending me from the likes of Chinese outliers, were they wanting to access my information. It's a bit like, I would describe it as leaving a key under a doormat and only expecting your friends and family to know that it's there, and hoping and praying that someone with nefarious interests doesn't get there first and scout out about and see if they can case the joint. That's effectively what we've done to the technology of millions of users of smartphones in the United Kingdom. And it opens up wider implications for Apple's response, not just Apple, but primarily Apple's response in wider parts of the world. Will Russia be asking for this backdoor? Will China be asking for this backdoor? Chinese authoritarians would absolutely love to get their mitts into the encrypted data of Australians, for example. You've had plenty of spy scares in your country. We've known our dilly-dalliance with Russians trying to hack things. It is just such an enforced error. And they say to me, Darren, you must be on the side of paedophiles for supporting this. I say no. If you are concerned about paedophiles talking to young children online, what we need is robust parenting. What we need are safeguards of parents actually monitoring what their child is doing online. And actually, they shouldn't have a smartphone in the first place. But if they do, monitoring what your child is doing, there are plenty of tools in which you can do that. Regardless, you should not be opening up a backdoor that's vulnerable to attack from actors who do not wish us well. It is naive and extreme.
Donald Trump is celebrating after German Conservative Friedrich Merz claimed victory in the national election. Trump posted to Truth Social, "Looks like the Conservative Party in Germany has won the very big and highly anticipated election. Much like the USA, the people of Germany got tired of the no common sense agenda, especially on energy and immigration that has prevailed for so many years." Darren, is he right here? What is your assessment of this election? We've seen that Europe has had a clear shift to the right in the European elections and various national polls, but has he got a point? People are sick and tired of this no common sense rule.
Well, yes, I think Europeans are increasingly sick of that. And I think especially in Germany, where we've seen a spate of terror attacks, that there is a clamour for security and common sense when it comes to the borders. Angela Merkel's legacy lies completely ruined. But I'm afraid to say that what Germany has secured right now is the Uniparty. It's more of the same. This is the same coalition that Angela Merkel had on no fewer than 3 occasions throughout her premiership. This will not bring about common sense in Germany. I do not think that there will be a united view on a sensible energy policy that doesn't bankrupt a once bastion of manufacturing throughout the world. I think it won't lead to common sense on border security and tackling what has become a really potent Islamic extremism. It's almost like she should have thought twice before inviting 1 million Syrians into their country. But ultimately, they've got more of the same. This is more of the same. So I'm afraid Trump is right in one way only, that we have seen extremes on both left and extremes on both right. And that's not me saying that they are extremist parties, but they are on the fringes of politics right now, because the centre is basically 2 sides of the same cheeks, I'm afraid. So ultimately, I think this will play out to strengthen the alternative for Deutschland's vote, when inaction and inertia is what is guaranteed in Germany. So I would expect there it won't be plain sailing, and I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years we see yet another election.
I want to talk to you about Nigel Farage. Donald Trump has used part of his speech at CPAC to praise Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Let's take a listen.
The leader of the UK Reform Party, who, by the way, did really well in that last election. I've been his friend for a long time, and I wasn't sure, am I supposed to be his friend or not? But it never mattered to me if he did well or not. I always liked him, but it's easier to like him when he got the kind of votes he got. He really took it by storm, and they say he's going to do even better this time. Nigel Farage. Where is Nigel? Thank you, Nigel. Thank you. What a great guy.
It's an endorsement, that's for sure. Not a surprising one coming from Donald Trump. And Nigel Farage still has a mountain to climb, but it appears that the momentum is still well and truly behind him. Can you bring us up to speed with how he's going? And is he still exchanging barbs with Keir Starmer?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think that that's a huge endorsement. You know, I think that despite the fact that Donald Trump has been saying that he's a good friend of Sir Keir Starmer and quite likes the guy, I imagine that will change pretty quickly. There's the Apple decision and a whole host of other issues where Starmer and the Trump administration are at complete odds with each other. So Nigel Farage receiving this endorsement at a time when every major opinion poll in the United Kingdom has his Reform Party beating the current government, the Labour Party administration, which is completely floundering in the polls. They are at a complete loss of direction and know-how. And they've had 14 years in opposition, yet all they could offer us is sort of conservative light politics. And it's absolutely deranged, and none of it makes sense, and none of it is especially popular either. So Reform have a real opportunity, a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Actually, I would argue that this is a once-in-a-100-year opportunity to do for British politics what the Labour Party did 100 years ago, which was to relegate the Liberals to complete irrelevance and to ensure that the Reform Party are the new right-leaning political party in British life. And that's young people alike. Young people are saying they would vote for Reform and Nigel Farage. He's got a phenomenal TikTok following. I think there are real moves afoot here, and that British politics is in for a real shake-up. This is the Trump effect on steroids throughout the world.
And are you confident that he'll be able to get there by himself? Will he have to do a deal with the Tories?
I don't think he would countenance doing a deal with the Tories. I honestly think that right now to say so, to suggest such a thing, would have people running away from you absolutely horrified with such a suggestion. They feel utterly betrayed, Gabriella, by the fact that they were lied to and gave Boris Johnson a massive majority only to receive net zero Brexit-like immigration-heavy lunacy large and nothing that was promised in that Conservative prospectus.
Yeah. Look, before I let you go, I have to talk to you about Meghan Markle. There's more trouble for her. Her new brand, As Ever. So she ditched American Riviera Orchard and she's saying she's focusing her efforts now on this new brand, As Ever. Let's take a look.
In 2 weeks, my show is coming out, which I'm so excited for, and also my business, which I think there's been a lot of curiosity about. Last year, I had thought, you know what, American Riviera, that sounds like such a great name, but it limited me to things that were just manufactured and grown in this area. Then Netflix came on, not just as my partner in the show, but as my partner in my business, and waiting for a moment to share a name that I had secured in 2022, and this is the moment. And it's called As Ever. As Ever essentially means as it's always been.
But there's already trouble for As Ever. She's been blocked from selling the clothing under that brand after a US trademark authority ruled that it was likely to be confused with an existing Chinese fashion company. So Darren, she's been desperate to try and get a lifestyle brand up and running. You just think about all the money that was wasted and spent on American Riviera Orchard. Now she's trying for something else. And it appears she hasn't really done her research with As Ever. How's this going to go?
Oh, yeah, it strikes to me as this is sort of this idea that there is an inherent privilege that Meghan Markle has, that she can, put forward names and suggestions of company names that have already been taken and not think about it because she just assumes that she'll get her own way. It's such an arrogant worldview. I mean, first of all, American Riviera Orchard, it sounds more like a naff perfume marketed in one of those dollar stores. And that was, as you say, a total flop, because who wouldn't want overpriced jam from a Hollywood mansion? I mean, what on earth does that jam taste of? Harry's guilt for his white privilege? What was in it? And now it's this As Ever. It's a name that's so unoriginal, as you rightly identify. It's already been nabbed by a Chinese manufacturer. Brilliant. And you'd think with a legion of PR experts and lawyers, some of the most expensive on the book on speed dial, that someone along the pipeline would have flagged that a global trademark search is step one. Step one. And then you've got the coat of arms being pinched in a tiny village in Spain, and they're apparently suing as well. She's opened up a legal minefield. But I've no doubt, Gabriella, that in the end, the ultimate victim here will be Meghan Markle.
Oh, yes, and we will keep hearing about it, won't we? Darren Grimes, host of DB News. So good to speak with you. Thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you.